All right, well, welcome to the Sludge Factory podcast, and today we have kind of a surprise, couple of special guests checking in with us. I thought I was only going to get one member of the band, but it turns out I got two of the founding members of legendary death metal band Atheist, Mr. Kelly Shaefer, Mr. Steve Flynn. Welcome to the Sludge Factory.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How are you, Matt?
I'm doing good, guys. Where are you guys checking in from?
I'm actually, this is Steve. I'm actually in Atlanta, Georgia, and Kelly is in Sarasota, Florida, our hometown.
Cool. Now, Atlanta's where you guys just finished up recording your upcoming album, Jupiter. Is that correct?
We did the rhythm. We laid down we did all the tracking at Lead Belly Studios here in Atlanta, and then we took all the music down to Orlando to Audio Hammer Studios with Jason Sukoff and did the mixing and post-production there. And then it was mixed, it was mastered elsewhere.
Cool. And how was it working? You mentioned Jason Sukoff. How was it working with him? What's the joke?
It was in the end it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it was very different. Jason is sort of one of those guys that's a genius that I don't know how to describe.
He sort of ticks to his own clock, man. He's unlike any other guy we've ever met in metal. I mean, he really is. He carries the same sort of just intense passion for this music that we do and that everybody around us does. And upon meeting him, it was kind of like you knew him already. When we meet people that are like-minded, he was really somebody that just understood us. He had listened to our music since he was 12 years old, and so we spoke the same language, so to speak. I mean, but as a character, I mean, he's literally right out of a movie. I mean, he's really just such a strong personality type and so unique. We spent about 4 days at his house, and we never mixed one song in that 4 days. And then finally, he was like, "Well, we hung out and we just hung out and listened to metal, talked about everything, and just really just hung out as friends for 4 days at the studio." And we did a little bit of track cleaning and this and that, and then finally Steve was like, "All right, so we're gonna get down to mixing." He's like, "Yeah, get the fuck out of here and I'll mix your record." I was like, and for us to just take our hands off the wheel like that was first for us. We were used to the Morse sound experience with Scott Burns studios are just different now. You can have a studio in your home now, so there's a lot of distractions, and so Jason works definitely in a way that nobody else I've ever worked with works. He just kind of does things in a very unique way, and so for us it was a little scary at first, but it actually turned out to be really a refreshing experience, and to be able to not have to listen to the songs 150 times in a row ourselves and just listen to final mixes. Sometimes makes it a little bit easier to hear things from an outsider's perspective, and you get better results that way. So in hindsight, I think the process was really great, and Jason was as unique a person as I've ever met in my life, and he's a genius. He really is. His ears, they're unlike any normal person's ears. He has just a different perception, and he's a ridiculously talented bass player and guitar player. We actually had him do a couple solos on the record.
Cool. I wanted to actually mention that to you because Kelly, are you playing much guitar these days?
Play a lot of guitar these days. Wrote a lot of stuff for the album. I just don't play on stage anymore. And I still play guitar every day of my life. And me and Steve wrote a lot of this stuff together. Certain songs are more signature me, and other stuff are Jonathan and Chris. Living with a Gas was a big Jonathan Thompson song musically. Folk King Christ was a big me song, Kelly Shaefer song, and Second to Sun was, and Fictitious Glide was me and Steve. Wrote a lot of that sitting in front of each other together. So I would fly up to Atlanta and sit there with my guitar after I'd written. I did some recording before in Florida on my computer at home, and I would bring the riffs up there, and then Chris and Jonathan would already have their stuff that they were working on with Steve because they were all together rehearsing. And we just combined all of our ideas, and me and Steve sort of had a knack for arrangement that falls in line with our template, and everything was just as it was. Once the riffs were collected and the wood was collected, it was pretty easy to build the house.
That's a good analogy. Now, you said earlier that maybe early on in some of the sessions it was a little scary for you guys. Is that because it's been so long since you guys actually sat down and recorded new material together?
sure. I mean, there was a lot of scrutiny, even on the decision as to whether or not to make a new record. And so when we sat down to write, we didn't know what would come out. But what we did, we found solace, and I think we found confidence in the fact that we were just going to do what we always did, and that is Kelly will have a riff, or I'll have a riff, or somebody will have a riff, and we'll sit down and bang it out and say, oh, that's really cool. What comes next? Well, how about something like this? And we just kind of sat down and did what we always had done previously, and we didn't know what would come out. In fact, it wasn't until Kelly and I, it was a really funny moment, or a sort of maybe epic moment for he and I anyway, when we left the studio here in Atlanta after tracking everything for the first time and put in the CD, and we're just, for the first time, we actually heard it, because we hadn't really heard it, and we didn't know what we were going to sound like, and sure enough, Jupiter was there, and we were really, really stoked about what had come out.
We didn't do a lot of pre-production on this, so we wrote the songs, and once we got a song done, the guys would keep rehearsing. I would fly back to Florida, but we never really recorded it and wrote around and listened to it. Whereas on the past albums, we did pre-production demo tapes where you can ride around for 6 months and listen to it and and fine tune it. This was very spontaneous, and so the first time we actually heard it as a whole was when I put the vocals on and we were riding home, listening to it almost kind of from a third-person perspective. It was just like, holy shit, this sounds insane, and that was our first realization that not only was it was this going to be a record that sounds like Atheist, but it actually sounded like a new Atheist, like a really modern. So there was a sense of relevance there that was really nice for us to be able to recognize that we didn't know, because when you're in the middle of the storm, you don't realize how bad the storm is, or how hard it's raining, until you sort of step away. So to have that opportunity after it was done was a kind of unique. Now, when we were talking about being scared, going in the studio, the recording and all that is something that's familiar to us, but leading somebody to our music to mix without us being there is really hard. That was the scary part. There's a lot of little tiny things in our music, little things that need to be heard that the average person, even if they're a fan of our music, isn't going to hear, especially drumming. So for us to just leave the studio and never be there and just wait for him to send us mixes was a little frightening at first until we heard the first results, and then we were like, very impressed with everything, and the production on the album is stunning. I think it's really in your face and the clearest, loudest, hottest mix we've ever had as a band, and it's nice to hear all this kind of the style and all the stuff and the little things that we do enhanced with a modern production. I like it. Not cool.
Well, I like it too, Kelly. I actually have been listening to it. Your label was really cool to hook me up with an advanced download. And I got to say, by the way, I got to throw a plug out for your label. Seasons of Mist is such a cool label. I love all the bands on there, and they've been really cool so far. So
yeah, they're really making a great stab at not only pulling back some great bands back into injecting that back into the theme, but signing a lot of good new bands. And they're working hard to find their way to the top of the indie metal scene, and we definitely have recognized that for a number of years. It was one of the main reasons why I signed with them. But it's always good to grab a stock on its way up,
Definitely. But getting back to the album, like I said, it's a smoker. It kicks your ass. It's just a little bit over 34 minutes, maybe not even that much, and every song is just brutal. Steve, I just got to say, you are one of the sickest drummers I think I've heard in a long time, and it's kind of amazing to me because, I've heard that you guys kind of stepped away for a while. Steve wasn't even playing music for a while. I think I even heard somewhere that Kelly, maybe you were a little peeved with Steve for a while for not playing music.
Well, no, as my friend
yeah, absolutely.
Kelly, who's always, as you've learned, his lyrics and his way of speaking, he's always the master of metaphors. I always call him the Ross Perot of death metal. And I remember one time, it stuck with me to this day. When I stopped playing drums, and you're right, it was 14 years that I didn't play at all. In fact, not only did I just not have a band, like I didn't play. And first of all, and thank you very much for your compliment. It's humbling, and it blows my mind whenever somebody says something like that. But Kelly would say, he's like, dude, You don't understand. It's like having a Maserati, and it sits in the garage, and you don't start it up. That's fucked up. You can't, and he would ride me like that, and I'd be like, oh, man, I'll always play drums.
It'd be like, how you gonna have all this fucking talent and not play, dude? Are you kidding me? Like, I just couldn't believe that, all that talent was sitting in the garage doing nothing.
Yeah.
Well, the time had to be right. And the time had to be right. And it's just, I don't know how to explain it other than to say that it wasn't until, and I remember it so vividly and clearly, I sat up. It was just after, like, the new year, 2005, and it was before anything had transpired. It was before anything came out about Atheist or nothing like the relapse reissues of our first 3 records and all that. None of that had happened or was even being discussed to the best of my knowledge. And so I just sat up in bed one morning. I'm like, wow, it's time to start playing. Like, I want to start playing again. I had no design. I had no thought, no pattern, no plan, no nothing. I just really wanted to start playing drums. And in fact, it was insatiable. And it couldn't be soon enough. I'm like, I've got to get out and start playing now. And I didn't care. My first thought was because I live in Atlanta, and I was like, what would be really cool is just like, I don't know, on weekends, maybe play in a bar on a Saturday night every once a month or something. That was the extent. That literally was the extent of what I wanted to do. Was I just want to get out there and play. And then, so I met these guys locally and started Gnostic, this band. And so,
great band, by the way.
Once I started playing, and I thought, well, this time around I'm going to take it easy. I'm just going to play, and But once I started playing, like. I was like, no, okay, it's got to be, it just kept getting more and more, and it kept getting more intense, and I was like, I had the fire, I had to play, and it was really a...
And once I heard the Gnostic stuff, I was like, bro, there it is, it's back, it was just, I remember hearing the first Gnostic demo and going, God, dude, your style is so unique that it's there may be, hard pressed to find, but there may be better drummers, but I mean, your style is all your own. There's just nobody that plays drums like you, and I could hear it immediately because I wasn't there for any of the rides. It was the first time I ever heard him make music and record it without me, and so hearing him play was like, oh man, So of course, the wheels started turning with me. I was like, oh, well, if you're playing like that, I couldn't believe it after him being away for so long that he still had that just absolute Flynnism about his playing, and it's a style that that I love so much. I've played with so many other drummers since that gave me even more appreciation for his style, and I don't think Steve realized it because he was so far away from music for so long, but the impact that he had on other drummers, and he's a very humble guy, so I mean he doesn't really surround himself with the same team that I surround myself in. But I was telling him while I was on tour with Neurotica and Ozfest, there were people coming up to me, the guys in Hatebreed and the guys in OTAP, and talking about the drumming, and I would always hear it in circles, people talking about Steve's drumming, and it was something I also felt as well, but he just never realized. And so for me, as a fan of his playing, I was like as excited as, I think more excited than he was that he was playing again, and just to hear that stuff. So that's an incredible feat to go away for 14 years and come back better than you were.
I agree, and I was actually a little shocked to find out that Steve, you also kind of have a successful day job. You're a vice president of a company. Is that still going on?
Yeah, my 9 to 5 is actually at a Fortune 500 global market research marketing consultancy. Yeah, that's. I mean, in fact, Kelly and I were just talking earlier because we're trying to work out how we're going to tour and how much time we can devote, and it's a real situation now because we didn't know how much attention the album would garner. We didn't know how much demand there would be, or would there be any demand, and then all of a sudden,
oh my God, it's blowing up.
The demand is going crazy, and so we spent a half hour on the phone about an hour ago saying, well, we got to sit down and figure this out because there's only so much time that any of us can devote to like being gone for weeks at a time. And yeah, my 9 to 5 job is this.
We never make records with anticipation of success at all. We always make records with anticipation of pleasing ourselves, And, we're very indulgent that way. And so the last thing on our mind is ever like, yeah, man, we're going to make a record, and it's going to be huge, and we're going to, go and conquer the world. It's always like, geez, I hope somebody likes this. It's fucking crazy,
Well, would you...
and this is the first time in our career where it's, it's overwhelming. It's the most press we've ever done. It's just the people, it's kind of going way faster than we anticipated. And so now Steve obviously is in a tough position to be able to go out and facilitate the touring that sometimes it's required, but we're just going to reinvent the wheel and do things the way we do things, and find a way to get to as many countries as we can without, and try to maintain both of them. I mean, that's the logical thing to do. I mean, you've got a career and a family and things to do, and I have a family as well, and it's, we can't go off and tour 280 shows a year. That's just not in our, and we wouldn't want to anyway. There's a better way of touring, a better way to keep the band spirited and fired up, and that is to do little 2-week tours. And, anytime, especially as 40-year-old men, to live in a bus together for any longer than 2 weeks is pretty fucking nauseating. So, when you're 19, you don't really give a shit, but so we're trying to find a way to do all the things that we want to do. We just didn't anticipate all the opportunities that are coming our way right now in this record.
And to give you a sense of the color of what it is that we deal with every day, I literally like 15 minutes ago before we talked, I was outside. My kids are outside playing. It's a beautiful day, and this woman who was a neighbor 2 houses down comes walking out. She's like this hardcore missionary religious woman. She comes out with a basket of cookies, and she hands me this whole like wrapped plate of cookies, and she's like, "Here, I wanted to give you some cookies." I was like, "Wow, thanks. That's really awesome." I said, "I got to run. I got an interview to do." and she's like, "Well, what?" I said, "I'm in a band. It's called Atheist." I live in this like subdivision neighborhood, and this woman's this hardcore like missionary Baptist Christian woman.
Thanks for the cookies. Now I'm going to go do my interview with Atheist.
Dude, I'm staring at the cookies right now, and they're really delicious.
Yeah, you may have ended up enjoying those cookies more.
His life is hilarious because, my life is pretty much all day rock and roll, metal, but Steve is absolutely split right down the middle, and his colleagues around him during the day could never imagine, that the other uniform he puts on in the evening. It's one thing to play music and be in a corporate position, but it's another thing to play this kind of music and be this, sort of have this impact on a generation of metal kids. And the people around us, around him, I don't think ever will fully understand.
Well, what is the reaction, Steve?
The music,
I'm sorry to cut you off, Kelly. Steve, I'm curious, what is the reaction when some of your business world colleagues, find out that you play death metal?
Usually the first reaction is they squint their eyes and go, "You?" Because I don't look anything metal, and then I always am just me. I'm always the same person, no matter whether we're in at some festival for 40,000 people or I'm in my office, and they never really quite they never really put the two together, and typically what happens is people need to hang you on a hook, right? So you're this kind of person, you're that kind of person, and the usual reaction is that people don't let you they can't let you be both. Like, I can't be a corporate weenie and a global death metal musician, because they're just so incongruous that people have a hard time relating to both. So typically what happens is there are a handful of people that go, "Wow, holy shit, I totally get it," but most of the people just kind of go, "Oh," and they'll go on YouTube and they'll see these clips of us playing in front of huge crowds, and they'll go, "Wow," and they kind of have to dismiss it in a way, because you want to pigeonhole somebody, and so, well, I need to relate to you on one level, as opposed to I can allow you to be multiple things at once. And so frequently I've learned over the years, I just let it go. It's like they either completely dismiss it, and I'm just this corporate guy they know, or they think I'm just some radical, out there, strange dude that's just like, and they'll be like, "Oh, wow, you're a crazy metal dude," and I can never be both for most
people. He found a unique way to merge the two on one instance, where he had to do this seminar for the executives of Coca-Cola, and including the global imaging president and all these bigwigs at Coca-Cola apparently it derived from an idea. Tell that story where you had to use the video of Atheist at this huge convention and sort of all these people that were as far removed from that as possible, and found a way to tie them together and make an incredible point that overwhelmed like a room full of corporate people with the story.
It was like 4 weeks ago, and we had this global summit where we brought everybody from around my company, all different offices, Japan and Europe and India and the U.S., and so we all came together to just talk about how we handle the account. And all the big rigs from Coke were there. Well, I was telling the guy that organized the thing, he works in my office, and I was telling him one day, that technology radically revolutionized the music business. I mean, the advent of the MP3, Napster, eBay, and all that shit. I said that was largely responsible for the proliferation of atheists and the spreading of our music. And I said, and it happens to be the same thing that my business is facing now. If we don't keep up with technology, we're going to go the way of the major record label, because you don't need the major record label the same way you used to. And you can go off and in your basement, you can produce a record that sounds just very professional and absolutely brilliant. So he said to me, he goes, "You got to tell that story." I said, "What?" He goes, "No, you just got to stand up and tell that story, because it's absolutely relevant to what we're dealing with." So I stood in front of all the executives at Coke and at my own company and said, I just kind of walked through the history of Atheist and how technology just radically changed how the music business works and how it enabled my band to be successful. And I showed 2 video clips. One was us coming off a stage where you could hear the only applause was like one guy in the back going, "All right," that was it. So then I told the story about technology and how it changed. And then the next clip was us playing at Hellfest a few years ago, and there was like 40,000 people. We're all at the front of the stage bowing, and they're just going crazy. And so it was
and that happened without anything other than the internet, really. That was without promotion and everything, and I think that's just such a great point. And he found a way. I mean, it's a testament to Brainwords that he found a way to show the people. I mean, I can't imagine. I would just love to be a fly on the wall to see the look on their face when they were watching those videos and watching it's one thing to rock music to those people is way outside of their comfort zone.
Oh,
but
sure.
Atheist is like way outside of the realms of their understanding. So to use that as an example with mainstream corporate executives is fucking classic. And,
that's a great story. And I can kind of relate to it in a way, probably not quite the same way, but I do also work in the corporate world, and me running my blog site and constantly showing up to work with my Slayer and my Megadeth shirts. I get the strange looks, but that's kind of what it's all about. And I do want to get into the album with you guys, but one of the things that we like to talk about here are the fans. Why are metal fans the most loyal, devoted, hardcore fans out there? What does it mean to you guys to kind of not necessarily be fans of your own band, but just being metalheads kind of to the core, so to speak?
Man, I think metal fans are they're so loyal, and there's a different amount of loyalty on each side of the pond. I'll start with the European fans. I mean, European fans are really key in the longevity of this genre of music, I think, because they've maintained their integrity as fans. They've not been swayed by trends or movements as much as American music lovers have. And also our media and the way things are presented in America are far different. But I think that the metal fan has always and will always feel like the outcast, sort of the redheaded stepchild of the music industry, and it makes them fight, and it makes them fight for attention. But at the same time, I think metal fans are content having their deep, dark little secret. And I think metal fans are generally loners. They're people that aren't necessarily like huge packs of social. They don't need social acceptance, so therefore they can pick their music in obscure ways. And I think that solitude in that within their brains is something that just is special, and it kind of transcends into new generations and leaks, and it's kind of infectious for other people. It's just cool to have. It really is the final frontier of true underground music, and it's nice to have. I mean, I remember how I felt about Metallica before everybody else knew about Metallica. That feeling of having something that nobody else has. It's something that's kind of all your own. It's the soundtrack for your own desperation. It's the soundtrack for your own independence. And it's also a soundtrack that motivates you to fight through life. And metal is that kind of music. And it really is. It's so powerful in so many different ways that metal fans, they're so loyal, and they'll fight you over a band. Not literally, but I mean, they'll argue and fight for their music. And people in pop music don't do that. Nobody's going to argue about Lady Gaga that much. You know what I mean? It's like whatever. It's like Lady Gaga, I don't. That's it. But metal fans have so many opinions, and there's so many subgenres of music within it. It's I think punk music has gone mainstream. There really isn't any other form of music like this that stayed underground, and I think that's a testament to the fan. Keeping it underground while keeping it marketable and available for everyone. And the internet really kind of facilitated that a lot. So the internet is the metal fan's best friend. It really is. It's
I agree with you.
Used to be a time where we had. I mean, to get a band from Germany's album would be really difficult, very expensive, and nearly impossible. These days, obviously, in 5 seconds, I can go to MySpace and listen to it. Boom, I love it, and go get that, the album. That kind of positive effect is ridiculously effective on being a metal fan. It enables you to easily be a metal fan and be obscure with the bands that you choose and pick. And there just isn't that same kind of passion in country music or hip-hop. Hip-hop has a little bit of it. They have a little bit of that kind of that underground integrity where, they're not really into when things become too corporate or too structured. It defies itself and goes in a different direction. That's kind of what metal does. Metal really kind of destroys itself and recreates itself again. It just keeps manifesting into different, hybrids, and it evolves. And it really has evolved since the old days of Black Sabbath on into now. I mean, it's still all metal at the core, but it's, the metal fans are just really, I think that they encourage that kind of creativity within the art of metal. And so it really is, without metal fans, none of this is possible. We're not on the phone having this conversation, and we don't get to make another record. And it's just, they really have a direct effect on the result of their own music, and I think that's a powerful place to be as a fan of music. As a pop fan, you don't really feel that same control. Pop music is away from you, and many times you find yourself disgusted with the things you hear on the radio that are being spoon-fed to you, especially in America. American radio is disgusting.
I couldn't agree more.
Really, it is disgusting. They should be ashamed of themselves. They have no artistic integrity whatsoever, and it's just a wash. And
I completely gave up on listening to radio.
Songs. Yeah, it's just terrible. And so that's never going to manifest itself into anything great. But metal's just far different. I love being a part of it, and it's just, I think we all have that same feeling, that love of aggression and that soundtrack of destruction. It's just it's inspiring, it's motivating in a lot of different ways, and it's and now it's become articulate and actually intelligent. So it's even more fun to be a metal fan.
Absolutely, I've always felt that part of metal is being part of a community, and in the day and age that we live in, with things like the internet and social networking, it's easier than ever to become to kind of feel like you're a part of something bigger than you. You know what I mean? Metal is definitely that sense of spirit, and like you said, you kind of feel like an outsider, but you're proud of that feeling,
Yeah, and it has the same kind of loyalty that gangs have in LA. The kids that fall into gangs, metal fans fall into the same thing. Only it's a far more positive, approach. Obviously, the same repercussions are going to happen if you listen to metal as if you were in a gang. But that same being a part of a large group that all feel the same way and all have the same sort of philosophy, and it's an incredible thing, and I just feel grateful to be a part of it. It's one thing to be a part of it, but to actually make a difference in it is an incredible thing to be able to witness. I'm glad we didn't have to die in order to have that happen.
Yeah, me too.
Art, well, that's how it is. Typically in art, you have to die, and then 50 years later, your music or your art becomes infamous, and your families enjoy it, but you never get to see it. So, I wish so-and-so was alive to see the appreciation of their art, So nice to be able to see the appreciation of what we've been able to create.
Well, that's why we do what we do here on the Sludge Factory, because we're fans and we appreciate what you do. So.
Nobody would ever hear it without you guys. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the fans and the networking, all that is such an important part of what we do. There would be no more metal music without that facilitation of getting the word out,
Yeah.
and telling the secrets of all the new bands and turning people on to music. I love turning somebody on to new music. I love that. I love somebody that goes, oh, I love metal. I'm like, well, have you ever heard Gojira? No, I never heard Gojira. Holy fuck, man! I got to play Gojira for you. That enthusiasm, that excitement is still the same in me as it was when I was 14. And I think I see that a lot in Europe. That same passion. Me and Steve talk about it all the time. Like just the level of fan that. I mean, we do these meet and greets, and these kids will. I mean, they'll walk around all day with all the vinyl, all the CDs, any photograph they can get their hands on. This big booklet of shit. And it's 85 degrees. They've got their leather jackets on. They're representing their favorite band T-shirt. They've bought 2 or 3 T-shirts they got on their other arm. I mean, you will not see that in America ever. Those kids there will be, they're just different. I wish that they could. I wish they had the same appreciation as European kids when it comes to really supporting it and not stealing music and not being a part of the problem with the music industry right now, which is it's kind of eating itself, And now bands have a great opportunity in the beginning to kind of write their own ticket and make their own record and get their music out there through YouTube and really go viral on their own before they actually sign with the label. But I just wish that that fan aspect was a little more intense in America. It's not really anybody's fault. It's just the way that our country is set up compared to the way Europe is. People don't watch television as much over there. They don't. They just tend to be more independent thinkers, and I think that translates into their fanisms. The reason why they collect things and they bring them to the show to get them signed, and they really actually have a lot of value for the music, and that's a really good feeling as an artist to have people value, your creation enough to carry them around all day under their arm and inconvenience themselves massively and travel 14 hours on a train to come see a 45-minute performance. That just doesn't happen in America very often, and that's unfortunate. But can't say enough about the way the European fans have really kept metal alive, because in the mid-'90s it went away for a bit. Florida was king in the late '80s and early '90s, and then the scene kind of manifested in Sweden, and the whole black metal scene and stuff like that started taking off. And that was really kind of the pipes that led to the metal being so strong these days. And kind of kept it alive, because there were some bad years, 7 years or so, up until about 2000, where it was just pretty stagnant. There was a lot going on, and it's I don't think it's ever been better than right now. It's amazing.
I would agree with you. And do you expect the reception to Jupiter and to kind of this reunion of sorts? Do you expect that to be bigger in Europe than it will be in the States?
It already has been. I mean, thus far, the early indicators are that it's just again, it's just appreciated differently over there. I think that they kind of understand and expect from us exactly what we gave them. I think in America, sometimes writers are willing to, they sort of roll around and see what everybody else thinks before they write their article, and I think that sucks.
But also, some of the bigger publications here, like Decibel and so forth, have embraced it and have been Jupiter, that is, and have been really supportive. And so to Kelly's point, and there's an intensity, but there's also a provincial nature about Europe, because it's smaller and it's closer together and it's compact. Whereas the States is just there's 3 times the people, and it's so spread out geographically, and from a like a magazine like Decibel, which is one of the biggest sort of extreme metal magazines out there, they have embraced Atheist extremely well. Since we came out with...
Well, you're right. I'm being a little... I should probably elaborate. The thing with America is there's writers and then there are bloggers. Now, I don't mean to disrespect bloggers, but anybody with an IP address can be a blogger,
right,
and they can have an opinion. Okay, so, and that's no disrespect intended to the medium of blogging, but when you have that, it's a free-for-all for anybody to have an opinion. So, American press is... American mainstream press, writers and people that are actually that are legitimately following the scene for the last 20 years. Sometimes we do interviews and they'll say, can you tell us about the band's history? Right away I know that writer did not do their homework. As a writer, the same way as a musician, I'm expected to practice my instrument, I expect a writer to take 5 fucking minutes and read the bio of the band you're getting ready to interview. Because if we have a 20-year history, I don't have time to tell you about, we started back in '86. I was born a poor black child, and I suddenly got, I can't go into all that. There's a certain amount of preface that you have to kind of do on your own as a writer. That does not fucking happen in America. They don't do their homework, and so then you find yourself in these conversations that end up condescending. And in America, I was asked a question that would never be asked in Europe. A lot of these bands, this retro phase of technical metal is sort of coming back. You feel like you guys are making a record for the right reason, or are you just trying to take advantage of the trend? What the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Like, ask me that kind of a question is like, it's like asking, going and asking Paul McCartney if he's influenced by fucking Oasis. What are you talking about, dude? No, we're not taking advantage of, we helped create it, dude.
Right.
So don't ask, do your homework and understand the pecking order and of how things have happened, and it makes for a way better interview. Now, this interview that we're doing with you is fantastic because you're clearly a guy that understands our place and way and how we fit into things, and you've done your homework, and that makes for a great conversation. But that does not always happen. And of course, doing this press, it's really been interesting to kind of. I'm a people person anyway. I'm a people watcher, and I love observing things, and it's interesting to see how drastically different American press is handled compared to European press. Now, Decibel, even in Canada, Brayward's Bloody Knuckles, a lot of the guys running those magazines are just, really, really well-versed on every aspect of every branch on the tree of metal. And so, when, of course, talking to them, we're able to have different conversations, much like we are right now. But, it's kind of tough when everybody's allowed to have an opinion, and when it's put out there, they start reading each other's opinions, and then suddenly, for instance, the production on the album. In America, there seems to be a trend to talk about the production being crappy on our album. In Europe, the production is the best thing they've ever heard. So it's amazing to me as I watch and I observe, why is that the case? Why else would it be the case? They're both listening to the same album. They both love metal the same way. Why are they hearing it so differently on opposite sides of the water? And I asked Steve about that too. That's just like a weird experiment. I don't have the answer to that. It's still a question.
Well, I think I find that when I start reading reviews and they start going into things like the production and maybe some other things away from the actual, the core of the album, which is supposed to be the music, I think I consider that lazy writing, and I think I consider that somebody who, as you said, maybe hasn't done their homework, maybe has no idea what they're talking about, and is going to maybe, copy or,
Well, they're influenced by what they've kind of read. So if a guy's already read 10 interviews and he read that, Jason Sukoff did Trivium, I fucking hate, if, for instance, that fan hates Trivium, right off the bat, they're going to go, well, I fucking, if he did Trivium, then I'm not going to like Jason Sukoff. Oh, here's the Atheist record, Jason Sukoff did it. They're an old school band, he's going to try to make them sound modern. Like, they start creating these things that are like, what are you talking about? At the end of the day, it's about making the music, making it sound good, done, end of story. We don't give it any more thought than that. I don't care who he worked with before or who he works with after. Right now, he's working with us, and we're going to get what we want it to sound like, and we're going to sound the way we want to sound, and it has nothing to do with anything else. But they start hearing that the production is not on the album, so now they're going into the listen already thinking, well, everybody in America thinks this album, the production is kind of crappy. They start being influenced by other people's reviews. And that I don't think ever happens in Europe. I think everybody's such an independent thinker over there that they almost have too much pride to allow their review to be influenced by somebody else's. So, just like we were talking about.
You're right. It isn't about just. A lot of it is just about being lazy, about just going through the motions. And in fact, Kelly and I were talking about this earlier, and we've always been different about how we approach the criticism of the band. And I was like, you just got to let it roll off. Because clearly, there was a couple that had come out recently in the States, and one of the guys was like, it's far and away the worst production I've ever heard. And it's like, all right, well, come on.
What are you talking about, man?
Even you don't have to like it, but clearly that's not it, right? You can pull out 50 that are significantly worse on an empirical scale, not even that it's up for interpretation, that, oh my God, that sounds like someone's hitting a bunch of garbage can lids for drums and the guitar, so there have been those cases where people write these bombastic reviews that are just simply, they're so over the top that you know that the person clearly had some axe to grind, and not necessarily even with the band, but in some level, and you just have to, you have to roll with the punches, and that's just the way it works. I mean,
clearly Steve's way better at it than I am.
It's just the entertainment industry, period. No matter what level, no matter how big, no matter how successful, no matter how small, those dynamics run through it. You'll hear actors talk about it. You'll hear musicians on the level of like the Beatles or on down from there talk about how people will just slam their shit for no reason whatsoever. I would say it does happen. I mean, certainly significantly less so in Europe, where there's a better sense of if you're going to write an article, you're going to do it. You're going to do your research. You're going to do it the right way. Versus here, where in some cases what happens is the publication has a bunch of freelancers who they plug in. I did an interview 2 weeks ago, and the guy came on the phone, and he was honest. He goes, "I got to be honest with you. My writer isn't here. She was a big fan of your band. She knows of your band. I don't know anything about you, so I'm going to ask. So, have you done any albums before this recently?" And I was like, and I said, "I'm sorry, dude." I said, "Yeah, I can email you like kind of the thing, but and we kind of pulled our way through it, but at the end of the day." You just kind of have to let people, have their opinion. And
well, I've come to terms with this in the last 2 weeks of doing all this press. That at the end of the day, what you really want to do is evoke emotion out of people, be it bad or good.
Right.
If nobody has an opinion, then you're making shitty music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody wants to be on the fence, so it's better to be on one side or the other. And as long as people have an opinion, then we're doing all right. We're making good art.
And in fact, you know how right you are. If that wasn't the case, I don't think Eminem would have a career, or a lot of people who just evoke significant reaction.
The point is to get people to have a reaction. But if you get no reaction out of them, then you're flatlining, and you're really just kind of making disposable art. And so you really don't have to have the hatred as much as the love. I mean, Metallica is one of the biggest bands in the world, and so many people hate that fucking band, and so many people love them. But at the end of the day, they're one of the most successful bands of all time. And and about reviews, I've always had a hard time. I always feel like someone's insulting my child when they're saying the things that they say. And it's okay to say my kid's short, but don't say that he's short and retarded. And he's not. And that's not cool. You don't have to say that.
Right.
You went too far. But I think that it's always hard to be judged like that. And I think that all you really want as an artist is for people to judge it. Accordingly, I think the writers have a certain responsibility to present to their readers what it is that they're about to listen to, if they choose to listen to it. Not that person's personal opinion about a producer, and because he did this other album, I automatically am not going to like this album because I used to like Atheist, but now I don't like him because Jason's producing their album. That's fucking ignorant stuff. That's trendy American bullshit there that doesn't need to have any place in music at all, and that's the part I don't like. There are a lot of great American writers, a lot of great American publications that played a huge role in this music being where it is today. And I tip my hat to all those guys. But it's just with the internet age, it's just created this free for all where people just are kind of almost now not only spoon-fed their music, but they're spoon-fed their opinions. And for me, if I ever read a review of a band that I loved and the review was bad, it would never keep me from going and buying the record. But there are a lot of people that really buy their albums, and I understand it's expensive to get a CD, and it's one of the reasons why people steal music because there's so many shitty records. You go out and you hear one song, it's good, and you get the rest of the album, and it's not. But I guess, at the end of the day, it is very good to just evoke an emotion out of people, and we definitely have done that. Everybody definitely has an opinion on Jupiter, so it's been interesting.
All right, well, let's talk about Jupiter, because I've been meaning to get to that. And as I said earlier, it's a great Atheist album. It's got that classic sound, the sound that people will probably remember from the last time we heard any new material from you. Talk to me a little bit about why the title Jupiter. What are some of the themes that you guys are talking about on the record? How did you go about trying to capture that classic sound that you guys are known for?
Well, the classic sound, we never tried to go for that. That just really comes naturally. That's the truth. It just really is not thought about. We don't. we don't sit around and say, well, let's write a song that's kind of like this. We just get in a room and whatever happens, happens. And however long it ends up being, it ends up being when we decide the song is over. A lot of people are like, why is the album so short? And it's like, well, that's because that's how long it is. We don't think about how long it is. We say what we need to say and we get on to the next song. And we knew we wanted to write 8 songs, and however long those 8 songs are, that's how long it is. But lyrically, Jupiter was not necessarily the first choice for the album title, but inevitably the best one because it encompasses a lot of different parallels that I've found between Atheist and the music industry, and between my personal sort of belief in the sun, sort of the earth, and having a different viewpoint of why we're here and where I'm going when I'm not here, and evolution, and all these topics are sort of covered on this album. Live and live again. Dealing with evolution, and also having a double meaning in the sense that Atheist as a band has had the opportunity to sort of live and then live again. We've really been reincarnated into a brand new world where we're still not only able to make music, but we're actually relevant, and that's a huge thing. And the planet Jupiter is very mysterious and very hard to pinpoint, and the surface of the planet is not a real surface, and the surface of this band is not really describable, and you see it and you hear it, but you can't really put your finger on what it is, and we can't either. Our sound, it is what it is, and it really just comes out that way naturally, and I don't know what the hell kind of band we are. Jupiter has got a lot of interesting aspects to it, and also has a lot of anger to it, and we definitely have that as a band. And so there was just a lot of things that came up after choosing the title. It wasn't a preconceived notion. Initially, it was just a very strong word that evoked a visual image of vastness and mystery, and that seemed to go kind of in line with us as a band. It's sort of misunderstood planet. It's not necessarily as popular as Saturn, because Saturn's so cool. It has its rings, and Earth is inhabited, and so but Jupiter's really actually very incredible, and it's certainly very recognizable. Being second in size to the sun, I felt like for me as a human being, I answer really only to the sun, so I'm kind of second to the sun, and so there was just a lot of things like that, and just lyrics are supposed to be interesting in writing and supposed to be creative, so there's a certain amount of I guess. I'm kind of leaving it loose. I love to leave things, loose for someone else's interpretation. But songs like Fraudulent Cloth are really right down the middle. As a straight, direct punch right in the face of the Pope, saying, yes, I do think you're a criminal, and I do think you should be put in jail, and I do think the fact that all these people around are not doing anything about it, not applying the same standard that everybody else in the world has to live by, is disgusting, and it should be at least, if nothing else, addressed by us, because nobody else seems to be saying anything about it. And so I thought that was an easy topic to tackle. It was one that makes both of us very angry.
I think one thing that really sets Kelly apart, because Kelly has always, ever since we were kids, handled writing the lyrics, and one thing that sets Kelly apart, particularly when we got the latter few songs on our album Piece of Time, and Unquestionable Presence, and then of course Into Elements, and now Jupiter, was the fact that Kelly rarely speaks very directly about things. I think there's a theme a lot of times that runs through death metal, and this is me just talking as a fan, and this is my opinion. But a lot of times in our genre, you'll have people that they most of the time, 90% of the time, they sing directly about a topic, and it's like, I am saying this about this topic, and it is this way. Versus where Kelly will have a topic that's going to be that he's covering, but it's done so in a very metaphorical sense, and it leaves you thinking, and it leaves you wondering about interpretation. And like Kelly just said, you bring your own experiences to the table when you read along with what is written. And unfortunately, our genre is not one that tends to focus on lyrics like, I don't know, like a Joan Baez thing or a Van Morrison or what's his name from Minnesota, Bob Dylan. Right, so where you really like, oh, you're gripping, you're grabbing on to the story, and I think it shortchanges the music a little bit if you don't sit and listen. I remember I was coming back from a business trip month or so ago, and I was on the airplane, and I was listening to the album on my laptop as I was coming back, and I was reading the lyrics along with it. And I called him when I landed in Atlanta. I was like, "Holy shit, dude! There's a whole experience that happens when you read the way the lyrics are written and placed within the songs, and the rhythmic way that they're placed. That if you don't give it time, I think you're really missing something. And I think that's one thing. A lot of times it's one thing that sets us apart, and a lot of times people focus on whether it's harmonies or layered construction of songs or drumming or a lot of these things that they say sets Atheist apart. But one of the things that sets the band really apart from most other bands in our genre, again, is the way that the lyrics are written, the topical nature and the content of the writing, and how it is done in an extraordinarily intelligent fashion. Now, Kelly just pointed out it's rare that he speaks very directly about something. Fraudulent Cloth is the third song on the record, and I think one of the most poignant and intense, direct statements I think the band has ever made. But then you look around
action. It's call to action.
But you look around that, you look at a song like Fictitious Glide or Second to Sun, and these are either a personal story about Kelly's life or a statement or just a general story about how the world is viewed, and those are very metaphorical. And so I think what I would say if people ask is, put it in and turn it up, but read the lyrics and read along with the song, and I think you'll get a whole nother level of depth.
One of the hard things about coming back is some of the people we work with are a little younger, and one in particular, our publicist is 28. Initially, I had to tell her, she was 8 years old last time we made a record, so and kids that are in the metal aren't necessarily used to having the lyrics be that important. But I have to say to her, listen, if you don't send the lyrics along with its music, it's kind of like sending the music without the vocals. You wouldn't send that album out to be reviewed, would you? So please send them the lyrics so they can read along, because it really is an important part of what we do and what we're saying as a whole. And it really is kind of something that gets swept under the rug because so many people don't spend time on lyrics. And if they do, they either go one direction or the other. Either it's really dumbed down or it's thesaurused up. And I don't write either way like that. I'm not trying to use a bunch of big fancy words. I'm trying to say things in a way that allows somebody to put it in their pocket and take it with them, regardless of what I was talking about. And this is an interesting aspect that I kind of debate with people all the time, is that when if people were to come up to me, I picked 10 people that were fans of Atheist music, and I asked them what they thought Piece of Time was about. I would get 10 different interpretations probably of what they thought the song was about. Like, tell me what you think. Interpret these lyrics the same way a preacher would interpret the Bible. You can only imagine if you stick a few hundred years or so in between it, imagine how skewed the story gets. Well, this is kind of my problem with when I read people reading verses out of it. When I see people reading verses out of the Bible, I think, you don't know what you're talking about. These are stories written by other men, and you're interpreting, you're trying to make them, they're applying them to today's life in such a skewed way that I wonder, it makes perfect sense to me that the Bible is just so used and manipulated to serve people's needs in today's world, so much so that with lyrics, people just don't understand, and that's kind of a cool thing for us, because I want people to take different things out of each song. I don't necessarily want them, I don't want to just tell a story. I think that does come off as kind of boring, and you can say, listen, I'm going to open the door, or you're going to say, I'm going to, and there's 10 different ways to say you're going to open the door, and I just try to be as poetic about it as possible, and I just wish sometimes people would pay more attention to the lyrics, but I understand why they don't. In this music, it's typically one or the other. It's either very wordy and hard to understand, or very dumbed down and kind of silly.
Really cool. I mean, that is I think that's one of my favorite things when I walk away from a band like Atheist, is that, first, not only can you guys like play the shit out of your instruments, but you're also like kind of a thinking man's band, so to speak, and I've always really dug bands like that, who, that they're just not out there just kind of writing, quick one-liners, or, just throwing in some harsh death metal vocals that nobody's going to hear anyway. I mean, this is a band that, really has some artistic value, a lot of artistic influences, and you kind of all combine it together to make it it's still brutal, it's still metal, but it's also very thought-provoking and very interesting. And I just, I don't think you see a lot of bands out there like that today,
And we look up to, Neil Peart, wrote some of the most poetic lyrics ever written in the context of music, in my opinion. Just absolute beautiful poetry. And I love the way he phrases things. It was such an influence on me. And even early James Hetfield. Hetfield was just really, he was talking about something, but it was the way he was saying it that, in Creeping Dash, for instance, waves. He was born to serve to the pharaohs. It was just cool. We used to always sing Iron Maiden lyrics. They were just always, Steve Harris wrote lyrics that were really just, kind of poetic and interesting and philosophical sounding. And so those were my lyrical influences, without a doubt. I loved, especially Neil Peart. He just, I think anybody can relate to the fact that if you've ever had the opportunity to say something that an entire table will agree with you and say, well, that's really well said. Well, we all love to be well said through every aspect of our life. And people have the ability to do that. They just don't always choose that route. And I always just try to find a way about, if I want to talk about something, to try to find a back door or a side door so that's not so obvious. And it makes it just more interesting, I think, in an artistic standpoint, to leave that room for somebody else to make it their own. Because otherwise, you alienate yourself. If you're writing songs with huge medical terms and all these words, look at me and my big words, and but you don't know what that means. No, you're right, but you don't fucking know what it means, and that means they're gonna walk away from it. They don't know what it fucking means,
It's about integrity.
Big words will be sitting there by yourself, and nobody will give a shit. So sometimes you can use the simplest words in the world to say the most complex and beautiful things, and that's always my goal.
You said that Hetfield and Peart were your lyrically your influences. What are your actual vocal, the tone of your voice? I think has always been kind of unique. It's.
I think I have to give some love to Millie from Creator, to be honest with you, because I never intended on being a singer. And back in our day, there was two kinds of singers. There was the Cookie Monster, or there was Talerea, who was just Talerea, and then there was. When I heard Pleasure to Kill, I was like, wow, that kind of sounds like what I should be doing. That sounds like my tone of voice. If that's going to be okay with everyone, then I'm going to roll off like that, because I really just didn't want to make that, two birds eye. I wasn't feeling that way. I loved the witchy sound. I loved screams. I even loved it in mainstream rock music. There's a couple of, ironically, even guys like Billy Idol would go, and I'd think, damn, more people should do that in pop music. I just love the screamy, witchier sound as opposed to, and plus it just made it easier for me to articulate words, I think, and be able to understand what I was saying, because that was important, because I could always understand Iron Maiden, and I could always understand, but they weren't singing like, they weren't screaming, so I had to find a way to articulate it. I just thought the best way to understand it was to take the pillow off my face, and because a lot of times that's what it sounds like in terms of understanding death metal lyrics. You just can't. A lot of people tout the mic, and I didn't want to do that. I was playing guitar, so that wasn't going to happen. And so it just seemed like a natural thing for me. My voice was kind of a higher voice for a guy then, and so the witchier sound was more appealing to me. So I got to give it up to Millie from Creator.
That's awesome. And real quick, I've also heard you say that you're a Chris Cornell fan. Is that true?
Oh my God, that's one of the best singers.
Who wouldn't be?
Kelly, what is, I got to ask you this, what is the best vocally, what's the best Chris Cornell just peel the paint off the wall song?
Oh, Jesus Christ, Pose.
Yeah? Okay, that's a good one.
Pose. That scream in the end of Jesus Christ Pose is fucking stunning. Where he just, that is you can't teach somebody to sing like that, man. That's a shriek that comes out of somebody that's gifted. And when you hear how beautiful his voice can be in the softer stuff that he does, and then you hear Jesus Christ Pose, just that ending scream is just maniacal talent. I just think that the diversity that he shows, and one of my other favorite singers is Mike Patton, who's also just ridiculous with his transformation of his voice. He just sings so many different kinds of styles so well that it's not even fair. Really,
it's not fair.
It's not fair.
I was hoping you were going to say, back to Cornell, I was hoping you were going to say Slaves and Bulldozers, man. Every time I hear that song, I just get chills down the back of my neck.
Well, there's not a moment of Chris Cornell that I don't like. There really isn't. Actually, there is. I'm wrong. The stuff he just did with Timbaland, I do not like.
No, I don't think anybody did.
I don't. That's not him, and he knows it. And I guarantee that it may take him a few years to admit it. But I get what he was trying to do. But man, don't you ever do that again.
No.
You know, don't ever go back and allow your voice to be run through a synthesizer. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well,
the guy, his voice, just a natural pitch and tenor, and the sound of it is just like unbelievable. And he gets so little credit for, you hear about David Coverdale and all these people. It's like, God, what are you talking about? The most manly voice alive is Chris Cornell right now. I mean, he can sing beautifully, he can scream, he can do all of it, man.
Well, it's kind of like what you were talking about with Steve keeping his Maserati in the garage, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I understand the decisions that he's made, even with Audio Slave and some of the other stuff that he's done after that, but it's like, and I'm glad that Soundgarden is back together, so hopefully we'll see some...
Did you hear that new song?
Oh, it's a great song. I'm a...
Man.
I love metal, but...
and it's ironic because I thought, Soundgarden's been away for, a really long time, and that's a band that had a very distinct sound. It was very influential in the grunge scene, but doesn't always get the credit that Nirvana gets. And I think it's when I heard that song, I was like, there it is. The same chemistry they have, Atheist has.
Yeah.
And I bet you they can't describe it either. But when you put Kim Sale, Chris Cornell, and fucking Matt Cameron, and Ben in a room, it sounds like Soundgarden, and it sounds like nobody else, and nobody else can sound like Soundgarden. You can try all you want to, but there's just some natural quality that happens when those guys get together and play, and that new song was a clear indicator that it sounded like it could have been on any old Soundgarden record.
Well, I think I did hear that it was an outtake for maybe Bad Motorfinger. I'm not exactly sure about
maybe.
that.
All right, well, if that is the case, then that would make sense, because to me, I was like, God damn, listen to that. But, with us, we wrote everything that you're hearing on Jupiter in the first 6 months of this year. So there were no old riffs or anything. We didn't rehash anything. We didn't have anything. Not one.
Well, I heard you say a long time ago that when you guys are in the studio, whatever you get, you get. You're not really a band who has time to maybe do some of those B-side tracks or maybe forget about some tracks. Is that still the case today?
Yeah. 8 is all we came away with. I do have some more guitar riffs on my little CD that I made for the first time. I wrote almost 2 hours worth of guitar stuff, and we definitely didn't use it all. So we came away with ideas individually, I think, but we came away with a wealth of ideas of inspiration for the future. So I know that the next 8 songs that we write together are going to be, you know what I mean, Steve? It's like... Yeah,
no, and I was going to say, even adding on to that, just from a studio standpoint, from a production standpoint, we also didn't spend... I put the drums down in 6 hours, maybe 7, depends on... one day was like 3 hours, one day was like 4 hours, and that was it. And it's a very sort of natural, and we keep using the term organic production, and you can hear the reality of us playing, like literally you can hear the way it undulates, and I think it breathes, and we wanted to avoid that sort of clinical perfection that has become synonymous with productions in the Pro Tools era, where you just make everything so perfect. And we literally, there was about, I think, 2, maybe 3 songs on Jupiter where we sat down and I played once. Live and Live Again is one of them. I think Fraudulent Cloth is another one, which is the 3rd song in the record.
Yeah, one take, there it is on the album, boom. Fucking one spontaneous combustion.
We didn't spend like a week just tracking part by part by part, and slicing it all up. I just, it was like, all right, no, I have to play. Like, my whole style is I have to sit down and play. I can't just piece things together and play sections. Like,
a lot of bands will do that. They'll roll a click for part 1, and then they'll play that. And then they'll roll a click for part 2, and then they'll play that. And then they stick it all together in the end. And anytime there's a mistake or a fluctuation, they fix it. And when you can't do that when you play organically. I'm listening to the drum tracks in Jupiter. Those are live drum takes. Those are beginning to end performances captured the way music should be captured. And what happens when people start becoming Pro Tools babies is they become dependent on the technology. And you can, the technology is amazing that, it enables us to mix records a lot cheaper, things to move along a lot faster. The editing process of the drums is a lot quicker and easier, because when you have 9 or 10 microphones on a drum kit, you don't want your bass drum leaking into your hi-hat mic. These kinds of things most people don't understand when they listen to records, but it takes a long time to clean that shit up. The digital era has created a process that enables that to happen quickly, but it also enables you to cheat and fabricate drum beats and fabricate things that never actually happened. Nobody actually played that shit. and then when they get out on stage, they also don't play that shit. You know, they fall down the stairs and sound terrible. That to us is a no-no. That's not cool, and that's not what music is about. And even though the people listening don't know it, we know it, and I don't think people would appreciate it. It's like looking at somebody's painting, and if you knew that they painted it out of their head, you have an appreciation for it. If you knew they traced it from somebody, you know what I mean? It's like not quite as cool. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Anyway, I mean, that's how I feel about it.
Well, and you can take just as an example, we did the song "O King Christ." There's a break in the middle of the song, and where there's like a silence and it sounds like a record scratching, and the lead kind of trails over. Well, we just sat. We got to that point in the song, and I sat there and I looked at the other guys, and I'm like, all right, click, 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 and then we just finished the rest of the song. Now that's where technology helps to like bridge it together.
Yeah.
Where in the old days you would have had to have, done it. You would have had to like
with a razor blade, you'd have to cut the tape and
you
back.
pause. You'd have to pause for the right amount of time. Where that was like, I sat there, bam, 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 and I sat there and I go, and I look at Jonathan and Baker, and I'm like, dan, 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 and just start playing back into it again. And it was a very. I think it's important to note. I mean, that we're really. At least I am personally. I'm big on the fact that while just period that it's an organic, natural sounding recording. I mean, the usual replacements and editing happen as it does with any band, but the vast majority of what you hear is literally what we sat down and played when we played it. And like I said, I tracked the album in about 6 hours. Jonathan did his first guitar take. Or his first guitar track in 1 hour. He went through the entire album and did the entire album in 1 hour, and that was it. It was done. And
vocally, "Live and Live Again" was written 12 hours before it was performed. Those, and a lot of the songs, probably half of them were written in Steve's basement while they were tracking the album. We would go to the studio today, they'd record the music, I'd get a rough of it, take it home that night, write the lyrics, come in the next day, write off the paper, and in some instances, first and second take we kept. So we had no time to sit around and polish shit. It was either going to be good or it was going to not be good. And so the results are what you're hearing on tape. So when you come see this band live, it's not only going to sound like it does in Jupiter, but it's going to sound better. It's going to be more powerful, and it's actually going to develop even more because we never, we didn't have any time to think about it, and that's good. I really love that process artistically. I love to not overthink things and overanalyze, and that's when you start thinking about the world around you. I think that is like you look around at the other bands and you start second guessing yourself, and you can never do that artistically and get any great results. I think one of the reasons why we're still here 20 years later is we just simply don't give a shit what's going on around us. And that's not always been a good thing for us. It certainly hasn't made us any money. But we're wealthy in artistic experience and artistic integrity, and you can't really purchase that. So, it's a give and take, I guess.
Cool stuff. And you mentioned playing live. I mean, I think a lot of us are really getting excited to see this album played live because, number one, we talked about the musicianship. You can tell that you guys are going to be able to pull this record off live, and it seems like a really elastic, just all over the place kind of record. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's going to sound live. I think I heard that you guys are preparing to talk about your tour in the next couple of days, so I don't want to maybe give anything away. Are you guys coming to Chicago? Are you guys coming to the U.S.?
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be to Chicago. It's a great city, great metal town. Love it. We'll definitely be hitting the big cities. We might not make it to Utah necessarily because it's tough. Well, maybe we will. You know what I mean? We have to be real choosy, play for as many people as we can, and in the amount of shows that we're capable of doing as guys that are in a different part of different points in their lives. And
and Chicago and all the major markets will definitely be in the works.
Well,
we're not going to leave out the small town. I mean, we're going to try to get if the situation presents itself, and we're certainly not going to ignore it just because it's a small city. But we have to make it make sense for us and in the way that we sort of are able to tour, and we just can't go get on a bus for an entire year and leave our families and do that. So we're going to try to. So I encourage people. A lot of times bands come through town 3 or 4 times. We're not going to be that band. So if we come through town you got to get off your couch and come out and see us, because
For sure.
it'll be the only time we get through on this album. And it's not because we don't want to; it's just because we just can't. So
Understood.
People can appreciate that. We're at that point in our life. We want to play as many shows as we can, but they are going to be a little more select than your average brand new band that's coming out. I bet you, listen, you could corner these 20-year-old kids that are on tour for 10 weeks at a time, and if you get them one-on-one, they'll tell you the same thing, man. I'm fucking tired, and I'm wore out, and the band's arguing, and you're getting shitty performances. The band is losing its steam after 4 weeks on the road. You just do. Rarely does a band grow. Now, there are instances where bands just really, engulf their lives in it, and they really do grow from it. But, anything, even great things, have their moderation level. There has to be a level of realism. And for us, at 40 years old, it's in families and careers and everything. For us to just pick up and leave for 18 months for Metallica tour is just not the cards for us. So, but we are going to play as many places as we can. We can't wait to play the music on stage. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I can't wait to see when you come through Chicago. That's going to be a definite show that I will attend. And
it'll be fun. I heard that the big club in Mokina is no longer.
No, there aren't too many clubs around. I'm in northern Illinois. I'm just 20 miles outside of Chicago. The metal-only specific clubs are just kind of few and far between, but there's some good ones. We definitely got a good scene out here. Some good local bands too. Back to the album Jupiter. I'm a kind of a traditionalist. I always believe that there's got to be, 3 things on a record that just make it an awesome metal album. Number one, of course, is just insane drumming, and we already talked about Steve, and I just have so much respect for you, after hearing that you did all those tracks pretty much start to finish, and that's just incredible.
Thank you.
The vocals have to be great, and of course, Kelly, we all know what we get from you, and it's great to kind of hear you back fronting the harder-edged band, like Atheist. And the last thing I look for is just a killer metal album cover, and I don't think Jupiter fails to deliver. Talk about the cover. It's so unique, and it's not something that you necessarily see a lot. I know, I don't know how to pronounce the gentleman's name, but I know that he's worked with Testament and some other bands before.
Yeah, Elleran Cantor.
Okay.
I believe I pronounced it. Fucking genius, man. The guy just, he absolutely took, two lyrical concepts, Second Son and Folk Christ, and created a masterful piece of art. And it's really a visual interpretation of what I'd love to say that the Men Did to Be that ocean deep, but perhaps all I had was really a river, and he turned it into an ocean. He really just kind of took, the ideas that I had in that song and our concept with Jupiter, and just ran with it in a way that no other artist that presented the art, that we get, no other artist that we asked to submit, choices for came anywhere near. And as soon as we saw the cover, I called Steve, and we were like, there it is. That's the cover right there. There was no denying it. It was the most definitive explanation of, we couldn't have asked for him to be more articulate with his art. And plus, the colors that he chose are unique to any other cover that we have. We have a lot of oranges and blues. And, if you look at our 3 album covers in the past, we didn't mean to, but somehow, our album, the logo's red and the sky's red on Piece of Time, and Unquestionable Presence has the blue and the red, and this one is just real earthy, and there's yellows and browns and tans, and it looks like a Renaissance. It looks like a really old Renaissance oil painting. So much so that our president of our label was actually concerned about it at first. Remember that, Steve? He was like, I don't know.
He wanted to do a copyright check to make sure it was not stolen.
Are you kidding me?
No, I guess he meant well, but he was like, this just looks too good.
That's great.
It really just, those 2 lions, are sort of symbolic of the youthful religion, sort of in the womb of the sun, and fighting for supremacy, and the branded for the astrological sign for Jupiter on one of the lion's shoulders. And this being our 4th record, and this guy just nailed it. He just hit it out of the park. And his explanation that he sent to us, which we really wanted to include on the album, and he was so humble, he didn't want to take up any space on our album cover, and so he actually removed himself from that. But his explanation was brilliant, and it explained it in a way that I wish that I meant to be that intelligent when I wrote the lyrics. You know what I mean? Like, I wish that I meant that. I can't own it. I wish that, I can't. But I mean, he just took an idea, a thought, and turned it into this, this amazing piece of art that's attached to this music that means so much to us. So we couldn't have been more lucky. And it's just, we always end up this way. Things just, we don't really try to do anything. Just things kind of fall in line and they'll fall into place. And we really had no cover. We were at Jason Sukoff's house in Orlando, and we still had no cover. We were running out of time. It was getting pretty scary about what we were going to do for a cover, and man, it just came over the internet, and boom, there it was. It was just a decisive moment. And I couldn't be happier with the way it turned out. Can't wait to have a fucking T-shirt.
Yeah, me too. Where can I get one? Now, Kelly, you mentioned
me first.
Kelly, you mentioned painting. I know that you kind of like to dabble in art in your spare time. Are we ever going to see an Atheist album with a Kelly Shaefer painting on the cover?
If I ever paint something that Steve, obviously was like, dude, you got, I do paint a lot, and I've done some, a couple gallery shows, and I really would love to be someday at 60 years old known as a famous painter. That would be an amazing thing to a personal goal of mine. But I would never push my art upon it just because I am a painter as well. I know it's best.
But we actually, that was a legit. I had said to Kelly, I said there was a couple of things that he had done that, about album covers. A couple had been sold and weren't really available. And then Kelly, I think a lot of it is, as an artist, you're reluctant to put out there, because I said, is there anything you think worthy of album cover? Because there's been several things that he's done that we really want. When we started out, I thought it would have been awesome for him to have done the cover. That would be really cool. But Kelly, I think, was reluctant just from his own, being
it just seems too indulgent of me to be like, what I mean? That's about one of my opinions for the cover. For the same reason that I don't play guitar on stage, because I'm not the best guy for the job anymore. You know what I mean? My hand hurts, and it's difficult for me to play live. I can sit down on a stool and play guitar all day, but I'm not going to sit on a stool just to cater to my ego and play Atheist songs. I'll go just, because I want to be the guitar player too. So I'm just not that kind of artist. I do what's best for this band, and what's best for this band was to have that kind of album cover right there. That was the best piece of art for the gig, and that's just where it ends with me, man. I mean, I wish that I painted something that brilliant, but it would have been very indulgent for me to stick my art, and plus, when we go to the band and say, come on, guys, let me do it, and you know what I mean? What are they going to say? No, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't feel like I earned the gig.
Sure.
Legitimately, and as an artist, I can't take it. I can't live with myself like that in that capacity. So it really wasn't even something I even gave two thoughts about. I knew there was a lot of brilliant artists out there, and the cool thing about being an Atheist was that when you're a brand new band, it's really difficult. You got to go out and hope that you can find somebody to paint your cover, or find somebody interesting even locally. But before we even gave the album cover concept or the name of the album, we had artists from all over the world sending us ideas, and which was kind of cool. There's probably 10 artists over the year before we wrote the record that submitted themselves before we even made any music. And Elleran was actually one of them, who wrote us a letter a long time ago and said, if you got a new record, please consider me for the cover. And that was really a nice thing, in the art community to have so much respect from our respect as well, and it's not something that we ever take for granted. All the shit that's happening to us is amazing, and we really are very, we're very seasoned and marinated enough to appreciate it in a way that I don't think a lot of people will ever know. We couldn't be more grateful, and be hard pressed to find a group of guys that really appreciate it more than us. And, everything that's come into play in the last year and a half, even the last 5 years, bringing the 3 records back and doing the live record. As a kid, you dream about, you listen to live records of bands that you love, especially Rush was the king of making great live records. And just to have a live record as a band is just one of these things. It's a special little notch in your belt. And so to be able, even though, that record is very raw and rough, and it was, the performance at Bakken was only our 4th in 13 years, and sometimes difficult for me to listen to, I still appreciate the fact that there's nothing like walking out on stage and hearing the roar of a crowd, and then hearing the beginning of Unquestionable Presence, and it's just kind of a special feeling as an artist to be able to have that kind of a thing. So all of this stuff that's happening is like it's kind of unfolding before us, and you know, in a best case scenario, it's a bucket list of things we always wish would happen. And,
right.
And they're happening for all the right reasons, and we're really grateful to be a part of it.
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I had another question for you, Kelly. Now, when you were away, you did, join another band, Neurotica, which garnered some, success on the Ozfest circuit. I'm sorry?
No, I was just saying he founded the band. It was his band, yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
No.
What I'm really getting at is, I mean, do you expect some of those guys, some of those fans who maybe didn't necessarily grow up with Atheist, I mean, do you think they're going to be showing up at the Atheist shows and buying the new record?
They do now. I mean, I just played a show in Neurotica last night, and around here now, it's an interesting question because it is something that I've struggled with in the time that I was with Neurotica. I wish that people would, and again, here we go with the Europe and America thing. It's entirely polarized by, in Europe, tons of kids were like, why don't you bring Neurotica to Europe? And they appreciate the fact that I was able to show diversity and actually go and sing, harmonies and actually do music that was completely the opposite of Atheist, and especially since Atheist is so different and weird. In America, it was not that way. It's one or the other. Neurotica fans hate Atheist and vice versa. And they will not allow, because much like Steve said, people don't really want to allow you to be two different personalities. They don't want you to be two different musicians either. And it's really hard to cross those lines. So I do find a lot of, not a lot, but there are a core of people that appreciate both Neurotica and Atheist. But to be honest, it's pretty polarized. I mean, the metal fans, I think, in America feel like they have to give me shit because they see that as a sellout. But I'm very proud of Neurotica, and I think it's, that's a great fucking rock band, and I'll stand up in front of anybody and say that. I'm not one bit regretful about making that move in my career. Proud of that music, and we had a great run, and, did a lot of great things with, in the 8 years that I was away doing it. And I wish that people could just listen to music for the right reasons and not concern themselves with what I did before or what I might do after. But it has been a tough thing, and it's one of these things about the scene. The underground metal scene is very particular. They do not like their people to cruise outside the bounds of their comfort zone. And I'm all over the place musically. I have an acoustic duet with a female singer. I did some stuff with Brian from AC/DC. He produced the first Neurotic album.
Right.
I did a solo thing with songs that he wrote. I had a band called Pyroclastic. I did a stoner rock band called Unheard. I just like to paint in different colors, man, and I refuse to let anybody sort of hold me to one genre of music. As long as I handle each one of those genres of music with integrity, then I should be respected for that and not chastised for it. But
Sure.
Unfortunately, I am beat up pretty good in the press about things like that because of Neurotica. And I get it. I understand. I probably was that kid as well when I was younger. I made fun of bands like Warrant and all that, but Neurotica's not fucking Warrant. And that's what I need people to understand. Is I think that a lot of people that make those comments about Neurotica never even listen to one song. They just heard the story and said, "Oh my God, mainstream Vince McMahon, WWE. Oh my God, I can't believe he sold out." And it's like, well, it's not a sellout at all. I mean, music had a lot of integrity, and it still actually carries a lot of weight. 12 years later, I played that music last night to about 400 people that it still meant a lot to, and those songs still work. And it's one of the things that I guess you just have to deal with as an artist. People like you to be in your little box, and they don't like you to come out of it. And when you do, they get to take shots at you. And I got to take them. I got to take them on the face and keep rolling on. Otherwise, I could curl up in a ball and just play what they all tell me to play and be that kind of a puppet. But I'm just not going to do that. I like to do what I like to do, and part of what I like to do is to be diverse. For me, that is a technical thing, to be able to come outside of this skin and climb into another skin and do it well. That's a challenge, even though the music's not challenging to play, it's very challenging to write a really good rock song. I mean, really challenging. And especially one that speaks to millions of people. And that's a goal of mine. It's still a goal of mine, to write My Dream On, my Stairway to Heaven. I want to write a song like that lives forever in everybody, in all walks of life. that should be any artist's goal, to try to transcend generations of people and kinds of people and one song that unifies everybody. That's a great goal as an artist to have, and I don't understand why people can't understand why I would want to do that. But, you know, it is what it is, I guess.
What are you guys most proud of your legacy with Atheist?
I would say our perseverance.
I think the shelf life for bands in any genre is probably 3 or 4 years, and I think I'm the thing I'm most proud about is the fact that we're here right now. It's 2010. Kelly and I, we were in junior high. We were like 16, 17 years old when we started the band, and the fact that we're still talking about what he and I sit and create together. If nothing else ever happens, if nobody likes it, if it doesn't sell, if we don't do another record, I don't know, on and on and on and on. At the end of the day, the fact that it has stuck around this long, and that we have the opportunity not only to do one, but we've released now 2 records in the last, say, 18 months after, you know, since 1992, so 17, 18 years. It's just, that's what I'm most proud of. It's just amazing.
And we did it, you know, we also did it on our own terms. I mean, we really did. I mean, we never once compromised, and in the face of tons of adversity. And, you know, it would have been really easy to roll up into gore lyrics and blast beats and all that. I mean, it would have been real simple. We had the attention of the record industry, and we could have took advantage of it and played our card a little more accordingly to the game that was being played. But it's a testament to all the young bands that whatever you're doing right now, if you believe in it with all your heart, then that's all that matters. You can have all the ties in the world, all the corporate people around you in the record industry telling you that you're way off, and perhaps they just don't understand it. Stick with what you're doing, and we're an example of that kind of band. I mean, we really are, and the story is finally being told, and it's really nice. You know, it's really nice for everybody to finally be on the same page about the history of this band and the amount of shit that we had to go through to get to this point. So, you know, while we are a little sensitive to people being to people improperly sort of saying things like asking us whether we play progressive metal because of Chuck Schuldiner. Of course, you know, that gets under our skin a little bit because it's just not the case at all. You know, we earned this place that we were at. We worked very hard for it, and we never expected it. And but now that it's happened, again, there's no way in hell that we could ever appreciate it more than we do. And so it's something to be proud of it as an artist, a musician, to be fortunate enough to keep doing what you love and actually have multiple generations appreciate it. You can't buy it or produce it or create it, or you know, it's just such a cool thing to be a part of. And yeah, like Steve said, if it ended tomorrow, what a great run, man. You know, something I can always be proud of, something our family and our kids can be proud of. You know, it's a great experience, and we got to travel around the world. That's another great thing about getting back together is, you know, we have such a love for each other. Me and Steve are such great friends and so much respect for each other. To be able to travel around the world and eat dinner in Finland together, and you know, eat dinner in Athens, Greece together, and you know what I mean. We're globe-trotting around as 40-year-old men playing 19-year-old music. You know. For 19-year-old kids,
right?
Basically. So there's this, you know, we chuckle about it all the time. Like, how did we get here? You know, right. I mean, how lucky are we to be able to just go off for 10 days and, well, we're going to go to Europe and you know, we're going to go to the Czech Republic, and then we'll zip over to Italy, and we'll go to Romania, and we'll go to Slovenia while we're there, and we'll dip on over to Athens, Greece, and then we'll fly home and kiss our kids on the cheek and go back to our regular lives, and then do it again in a couple of months. What a great job, man. What a great experience.
Very cool.
Couldn't be more blessed.
No. Well, listen, guys, you guys have been really cool, and I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I did want to ask a question. It is Halloween weekend. You guys got any awesome costumes planned out, taking your kids trick-or-treating, anything like that?
I'm going to go with Brett Michaels. Fucking asshole.
You do bear a somewhat of a resemblance, Kelly, just a little bit.
Yeah, man, with that shit. It's my, what can I say? I mean, I don't know. It fucking infuriates the shit out of me, and I guess by saying that now, I'm really going to get that. So, whatever.
Well, don't worry. I mean, don't worry. I definitely don't.
In fact, our guitar player, Chris Baker, has a huge Halloween bash every year, and I'm going tonight in a couple hours. I'm going to head over to his house, and the band will be there. Obviously, Kelly's in Florida, but the rest of us will all be there. And usually it's a very self-indulgent costume for Chris Baker, so we'll see what happens this year. There'll be pictures, and it'll be all over Facebook.
Well, last year you went as Chris Baker, did you not?
It was the year before, yeah.
Oh, year before?
There might be, and I'm just throwing this out there might be an appearance by Kelly Shaefer at this year's party, so we'll see what happens.
Oh my God! Really?
That would be a sight to see.
We'll see.
Lastly, Kelly, I know that you have some other business ventures in Florida. Is that right? Do you care to talk about those at all?
Well, I owned head shops for a period of time before we did this album. I sold them both before we started recording the album and everything. But yeah, I sold bongs basically for a while and had a tattoo shop. And that really facilitated my music career through the Neurotica days and through the early part of the Atheist reunion. I basically created a shop. I went to Holland and I saw kind of the shops over there back in the 90s and just kind of came home and I knew I couldn't grow pot in the window like they do in Holland, but I could at least sell the pipes. And so I sold pipes, created this little shop called Freakies. And it's just full of really obnoxious shirts and bongs and incense and cool shit. And it was a great place for me to sit and kind of have a headquarters where I could do all my music business and kind of be me and listen to music all day. And so that's been my job for the last few years. Yeah, a very cushy job and easy to. So we had a tattoo shop there and I had tattoo artists, and it was a great environment for me to be able to do what I do and. But getting the reissues back out again, I did all my business from there, and I haven't had a regular job. It's hard for me to have a regular job. I haven't had a job since I was a kid, so I had to create one that was cool enough to allow me to do what I do when I need to do it, and that was a great thing because I had to go on tour for 2.5 months, so I needed some way to make money while I was away. You don't always make a bunch of money on those kinds of tours. Make maybe $400 a week, so it was nice to have a business to come home to and have a still be making money while I'm out playing, having a good time.
Can I just say that I just love glass? I could just sit in the head shop and look at the glass sculptures all day long.
That's a great form of art. It's really underappreciated.
It is, absolutely. It's underappreciated. Nobody talks about it, but it's some of the most remarkable, talented thing that you've ever seen.
Often in the construction of homes, because blown glass doorknobs and things like that are just fucking beautiful. And I have a lot of friends that blow glass, and the process is very artistic and extremely creative, and also very dangerous.
Sure.
So it's actually, it's a particular art form that you can kill yourself with inhaling the glass. When it's in a gassy form, and you inhale it, and it ends up in your lungs and hardens like glass. That's bad. So these guys go to great lengths to blow glass, and the results are amazing. And I always found it fascinating as well. I always loved having that, being in that position to buy glass every week and all the different creations, and watch people's reactions when they would come in the store and see a big 3-foot Jerome Baker, just crazy ass bong that somebody created, and a lot of fun, And these days they've restricted the laws so much so that it's impossible to have those kinds of shops. And then you found in Florida a lot of these little mom and pop stores started carrying pipes, and it just kind of lost its coolness.
Right.
Initially, I did it for the Cheech and Chong era, sort of a pop culture appreciation store. It slowly didn't become that anymore, and then having a child really changed my view on that as well. The thing with that, and I gotta do something to make her a little more proud. Sometimes I've already got to explain Atheist to her when she gets older, so I don't need to explain the bong shops too. So that's over with now. Right now, I'm just teaching guitar and painting and playing music.
Excellent. Well, listen up, guys. Thank you so much for being here. This is a big honor. It was a big surprise to talk to both of you guys. Like I said, the new album is great. For the fans of Atheist, they're not going to be disappointed. And it's going to be really cool to see you guys out on tour soon.